Are you ready to learn what red flags keep an eye out for when looking for love?
Then we got you covered. I'm Brianna.
And I'm Alex.
And this is the podcast where we unpack reality TV and call out the bullshit.
So that you show up confidently while dating and in relationships. Welcome to Ditch the Script.
I love it.
What up?
Hey, girl. Look at that.
Hey girl, hey.
How
We
are
were
you?
playing with our fingies.
Yeah, we were in a non-sexual way. Well, what I was asking, even though we were both on mute, is like because you had started doing the wave with your fingers interlocked, and I was wondering if that's as hard for you to go the opposite way as it is for me.
Oh, hold on.
Yeah, try it.
Oh yeah, that does not
It's
feel
hard,
natural.
right?
No.
Yeah.
This is like this is weird. I can't.
Never thought about that before in my life. Never thought about that before in my life. You know what I love doing out, like on a dance floor, is busting out one of these. Just a good old classic arm wave.
Oh, full arm. Yeah, 100. Yeah,
it's still
gotta
like
take it back to basics.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in the fax machine. You know, Q-tip.
Q-tip.
You just gotta bring it all down.
Yeah, like fashion, like dance moves.
Yes,
come back in style.
They do 100.
Mm-hmm.
So, Alex is always doing the oldies. But how are you? I'm great. Not much is happening. Well, not much is happening over here. I feel like that's such a lie. There's a lot happening over here.
Don't lie. You don't have to tell us, but also don't lie to us. It's weird.
There's a lot going on over here that I am navigating in my personal life like a motherfucking champ. It's in Q. Yeah.
It's in Q.
Yeah. How are
it's just
you?
in Q, babe. But you know what? Big ups to self-care. You know what I'm saying?
I've been crushing it on the self-care game.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the
saying.
one thing I've mastered in this life is self-care mastery, regulation mastery. That's about it.
Which, like, you weren't born with that.
No.
So
No. And it's still like new level, new devil vibes. I actually had a really great moment of awareness the other night, if you want to talk about that.
Ooh, yeah, let's go.
So obviously, like with my last relationship, we really got in the habit of like our time together was watching TV at the end of our day. Mm-hmm. And I noticed the other night, like I'm here in my own apartment, have been since May, majority of the year. And I was like gravitating towards like entertaining myself with like on my phone doing something. But then I felt so much shame and I would catch myself being like, put your phone down and just watch TV. And I'm like, but wait a second. Why am I forcing myself to watch TV? And I started to realize like, oh my God, subconsciously I have taken the pattern that I was so accustomed to with my previous partner into my own home when energetically it's not necessarily how I like to kick back. And very quickly I realized like, wait, before I lived with my previous partner, I didn't watch as much TV as I did with them. I read more. I still watch TV, don't get me wrong, but like not as much, not like every night this was a thing. Yeah. And so that was a really fun aha moment I had the other night, kind of giving myself the awareness of like, I get to choose what I want to do in the evening and it doesn't need to be so regimented into what I have been doing in the past.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. So when you caught yourself and you were like, wait, put your phone down, be present, that was from a more recent, like, self prompt to be present while watching TV with your partner because that's how you were spending time together.
Yeah. And I started to realize like, who am I doing this for? Because it's like, if I don't feel like watching this, why am I sitting here like forcing myself to get off the phone? And there are times, like, don't get me wrong, there's 100% times where I'm like, I leave my phone on the opposite side of the room or I lose it for the day. And I do that intentionally where I'm like, I'm very much unplugging. But there are also times where it's like, if I want to look at content on Reddit or Instagram or Facebook or whatever, I'm allowed to do that. You know what I mean? Yep. But I was because of you nailed it. Like because of the past, I'm so used to like, wait, no, the TV's on. I need to put my phone down and focus that I was like, wait, but why? Like there's not, I'm not impacting anyone else. And if this is what I am enjoying doing in this moment, why can't I let myself have that? And being more aware of like what the desires of what I want to do with my time off are, instead of being like so routine with what I'm doing with my time off, if that makes sense.
It does.
Yeah. The
Awesome.
end. It was great.
Self-care.
It was a beautiful,
warrior.
yeah. I was like, woohoo, what a win. Like I said that out loud. I was like, what a great little moment I just had.
Yeah.
Because it's true. We get into these patterns and then we're like, why does this feel so icky? Like, oh, because I'm forcing myself to do something that I don't want to do right now. Yeah.
I catch myself that way in work. Like now not having like a supervisor to report to frequently.
Yeah.
Like when I go, like I'll go get my nails done at 2:00.
Yes.
In the middle of the day at 2:00. At 2:00 in the afternoon on a Tuesday, because I have like a free block of time, and I'm like sitting in this nail salon and I'm like, I feel like I shouldn't be here. I'm like getting my nails done on the clock, and then I'm like, wait a minute.
Oh.
No one's
Playing
coming
hooky.
for me. Yeah.
Yeah. But it feels like that. Isn't it creepy? I so relate to that too. Yeah.
Yeah, but I also
It's like,
in a quirky way, I hope that feeling
scandalous.
I hope it never goes away, because I like want to,
Yeah.
I like that moment to remember, like, no one's coming for me. I get to choose how I want to spend my time, however I want to spend my time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, so I also wanted to tell you, I was on Dustin's podcast on
Oh my
Friday.
gosh, yes.
Is that Friday?
Oh my gosh,
Saturday.
amazed.
It's a Friday. Yeah. So I want to take
Exciting.
a quick opportunity to plug it. It's on, this episode hasn't aired yet on Dustin's podcast. It's called Sex Party. But if you hear this and you're curious about this, Alex has also been interviewed and has been featured on his podcast, again, called Sex Party. And, okay, you tell me what you were talking about with him and I'll share mine.
Yeah. So, I've been on it twice. Most recent one was narcissism. We talked a lot about narcissism, and the different flavors and textures and layers to narcissism that there are. Yeah. And we talk a little bit more about my breakup in the beginning too. Cause like Dustin, the first time I was on his show, I was still with my partner at the time. And then recently he, like the beginning of the podcast, he's like, what's new in your life? I'm like, actually, I went through a breakup. Did you know? And we just kind of got into like that conversation. So that's cool too. But yeah, he's a cool guy. I love what he's doing with his show. And what I appreciate most about Dustin as a host too, is that he's so transparent with his own fuck ups and like very honest about being a guy and the things that go through his mind. Yeah. So I really value him, in this world of podcasting and transparency.
Yeah. We had a whole conversation about passive aggression and how that's a frequent habit of his because of like his household.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in the episode that will eventually be aired somewhere in January, like we talk a little bit about compatibility, like what we're calling as compatible and incompatible is actually totally different than what we really should fine tune those things are when we're like dating or seeking long-term partners or any kind of term partner. And we also talked about like the benefits of relationship check-ins and how to make them like sexy and not like a chore that you engage in. And then
I love love it.
And so, but we got into a conversation about how passive aggression shows up because he wanted to know from me, kind of through both of us, if what it was like to watch reality dating television and with like our own professional backgrounds. Like, do we watch these shows with that lens in place? And I was like, I can't speak for Alex, but like, I do. And I think that she does too. It's obviously such a different experience than just
have to
kicking back.
Consuming it. Yeah. 100. And there's times where like, I find myself, like, obviously the majority of the reality TV I watch is for our show, here at Ditch the Script Pod. But when I do randomly decide to like dabble in consuming for funsies and things that we aren't covering here, which by the way is very rare if I'm being honest. Yeah. But when I do, it's a totally different experience. I feel like it's enjoyable in a different way, but way less of a an intellectual, intentional, like, oh wait, I'm not catching the things that I would normally catch if I looked at this with this certain lens. It's just fascinating to me.
Yeah. So that was fun to get into and be curious with a dude who like does not watch the television that we break down here. He was very curious about it and it was fun.
No.
So if that is something that you're interested in hearing, you can go to his show, Sex Party, which again already has, I guess, 2 episodes featuring our very own Alex Scott, and then 1 with me soon.
And maybe a second one to come, Brie.
Oh yeah, he was like, you can come back. And I was like, I know that's right.
100. Okay. Anything else that you want to share before we jump into the Love is Blind saga?
Just dating out here in these streets. It's
tell me.
It's rarely stimulating, but it is surely never boring. That's my tagline for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what I feel good about is my efficiency lately. My efficiency lately has gotten efficient. Some would say.
Yeah.
I had gone on a date. I had gone on 2 dates. Not this weekend that we're currently in, but the weekend before, with one dude that I had met off of Hinge. And like, he was cool, but even by the second date, I was like, nor it's not for me, you know?
Yeah.
So I texted him and I told him what it was. And he did ask me if it was because he was a bad kisser. And the answer is yes.
Yeah. For
the
us
answer is,
here, the answer is yes, but to his face, the answer is...
not even to his like textual avatar face. Like I couldn't bring myself to say it. And I want to say I'm not a perfect person, but I do want to make an example out of me and say it is totally okay to tell someone and give them that feedback, to be like, yeah, it wasn't my style and it didn't make
100.
me feel like. You can do that. I don't want to set any rules to be like, no, never tell, like, not appropriate. Like, you could say it. I had the option. I just chose not to. That's all.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that too.
Totally. And maybe if you connected with him on a more deeper level, it would be a conversation you were willing to have. You know what I mean? But it's like, if that's not the only thing missing and there's other things that just were not the vibe, then why bother? You know, because that person might be a great kisser for someone else who is more their vibe. So it's like, you know,
I will say, like, if we were in this situation and this person was like, I was into in a different way than how I was feeling in these first couple of dates. If I was really into this person, I was like, oh my God, but it's just this one thing. It's just this one thing. I would have stuck it out and tried how I think I would have handled it, or what I would have liked to say I would have handled it as. I would have been like, here are some things that I really like. And you gave a really good example of how to make this like even spicier. Will you share it? Because I think it's really good.
Oh yeah. So this came back from a male client actually, who was like, I met a girl. She's like, I really enjoy her in so many ways. She's beautiful. We get along, like have a lot of mutual interests. But we had our first kiss the other day, and he was like, and it wasn't good. Like, he was really awkward. Like, how do I handle this? Because I want to see her again, but like, if the kissing doesn't get better, I don't know what to do. And obviously it's understandable. For a lot of people, kissing is the gateway to sexual and physical intimacy. You know what I mean? So it's like, I get the desire to have, obviously all of us want a partner that we deem as a good kisser. So I just told him, I was like, well, why don't you make it more playful and just be like, hey, the next time you see her, be like, why don't I kiss you the way that I want to be kissed? Like, let's like play, like kind of role play, you know, and make it light and make it fun and make it sexy. It doesn't need to be this like intense, like, hey, so that one time we kissed, like it wasn't really my vibe. Like when you go down that road, the other person's going to feel a lot of shame and embarrassment. So it's not helpful. So if you can make it more like, let me show you my preference. Let me show you how I like to lead in this way. then it's like, it feels less about like feedback and more about like sharing sexual love languages, if you will, you know?
It's such a good reframe. Yeah. It's tough because I do think that like there's always going to, even if you handle it exactly how Alex just shared, and that feels like you did it with success, there's always going to be room for someone to, on the receiving end of that, to feel like, ooh.
Interpret,
even though they didn't call me a bad kisser, I'm clearly not giving them what they like. And that makes me feel not great. And I think that like, listen, if that's going to be the thing that intimidates someone from wanting to like continue to see you and explore a relationship because their ego is so wounded by that one comment, then they weren't going to be for you. But hopefully y'all can stick it out, and maybe it beckons them to also share, and this is how I love to get head. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it should be able to,
exactly.
It can be mutual.
Yeah. And that's what I was trying. That's like kind of a really good gauge to see sexual communication and how open that person is. Because think about it, like, let's say someone's a great kisser, but then you have sex with them and it's not great sex. Are you going to like abandon the entire relationship? Or are you going to be like, hey, let's talk about what we like like during sex. Let's talk about what really turns us on and gets us going. Let's talk about what positions like really get me off. Like, you know, that those conversations are always going to need to be had. Even if you do have amazing sex at some point, what about like, let's try something new, you know, like, it's the same conversation happening just at a different stage of the intimacy level. So it's like, we need to take like, and I get it. I get the idea of like assuming or hearing that on the receiving end and immediately jumping to the conclusion of like, I'm not good enough. Simultaneously, I encourage us to like broaden our awareness of, instead of this me assigning a story that I'm not good enough because this person that's clearly interested in me wants to bring this up and wants to communicate through this with me, you know, let me look at this like a teamwork and like we're in this together to create the most amazing physical intimacy ever, instead of I'm less than, you know, because if a person, like what we just said with Brie, if a person likes you enough to have that conversation with you, that's good. Whereas they could just be like, I'm out, you know,
which is what I did.
And both are totally valid, but they happen for two completely different reasons. Yeah. So it's like, take the feedback and take it less like feedback and more like a game, you know, like a version of spin the bottle. It's like, no two people are going to kiss the same. No two people are going to have sex the same. Like, you have to learn how to share that with your person. So be open to having those conversations. If I'm being honest, that happened. The first time I had to navigate that was high school with a boyfriend. And it at first made me feel really uncomfortable. And then when I got over the emotional side of it and could hear what they were saying, it actually, if I'm being honest, it actually allowed me to grow in my sexuality. But yeah, it was hard to hear it.
They gave you this feedback. They were like, this is what I
they compared.
Like more of.
They did it in a low-key shitty way, if I'm being honest, because they compared me to an ex.
Oh.
Yeah, they compared me to an ex, and they were just like, this is what I liked about that person, like this dynamic versus, you know, with where we're at. And at first I was like, major, meh. But then after that, I was like, you know, and we still continued to date for another year. And like, it was fine in the end. But initially, like that really hurt to hear. So that's the other thing. It's like, there's a way that we can communicate these things. Comparing who you're with currently to your ex-partner is not the way to do it. Like I said last week on our episode, it's a form of triangulation. It's not the vibe. And simultaneously, for the people receiving it, assuming that it was communicated in a healthy, intentional way, let's get away from this is a reflection of my worth and my enoughness, and more of this is an opportunity for me to up level and explore and try new things. And you also get to decide if you don't want to. If you're like, no, this is how I like to do things and I'm not open to that. Bye, Felicia. Can happen too.
You know what we're not going to do, though, at least in the 2023 and beyond years, is accept whatever like mundane and okayness that comes from the making out and the sex, if those things are important to us. Like, if like when you gave that example of like, okay, if you're not loving the sex, like you don't want to throw away the whole relationship. So you want to spark up some conversation on how to make things better, because don't you want it to be better? That is the ultimate option. And what I see a lot of people do is just live in the acceptance of, well, this is just going to be what it is, isn't it?
Yeah. So what I was hearing you say was people value the sexual connection so much, but instead of having the conversation, they just tap out. Right.
Yeah. And just like accept it for the mundaneness that it is, without any desire to have difficult conversations that could lead to a much better and fulfilling sex life.
Yeah. I really want to normalize growth and evolution within relationships. I think far too often people are like, you're not the person I fell in love with. You're not, and it's like, okay, ideally that statement isn't being made in the sense that like, when you met me, you treated me so well and now you don't even acknowledge my existence. If that's the case, that's a different conversation, because that's not healthy. But when we think that our partner is never going to want new things in the bedroom, or is never going to want to like spice things up or try new things together or learn new things and new skills together, that's not helpful to our own individual growth. And it really screws with our mentality within long-term relationships, because we're so hyper-focused on comparing who they were from the very beginning, and instead of who we're growing into being together as a couple. Yeah. It's definitely something I think we need to work on in all the ways, not just sexual conversation, although that is a big one.
Yeah. Like it can get better. It can be a lot better, but we have to be willing to work for it.
Yeah. 100. And a lot of people are like, there must be something wrong, instead of being like, wait, we're two humans. Let's like come together and work on this. Yeah.
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 Absolutely.
All right.
Okay.
Should we jump in to Love is Blind?
Love is Blind, season 3. We are covering episodes 5 and 6 today.
But is it?
It's so blind. No, it's not blind at all. In fact, these are the 2 episodes of Love is
Fucks us
Seen. Love is seeing.
Love is very seen. Man. Ooh. Okay, so let's go.
I'm going to tell you where I'd like to start. I'd love to start by saying how much I love Brennan and Alexa.
Me too. Yeah. They're the only couple right now that I think has an even glimmer of a shot.
Yeah. It's just in the way that they relate to each other. It's like the way that they actually connect with one another as human beings, and not as fulfilling certain expectations that they have of like an ideal partner. I think that they're really just connecting, instead of being like, and when I was looking for in a partner, which that's all fine and good, but instead they're just fucking vibing off one another where they are.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're having really honest and real conversations. And that is going to, one, that's what sets them apart from every other couple we're seeing. And 2, it's going to set them up for success, because neither one of them is walking into a situation that they're not debriefed on. Like that they're not like, hey, this is how my family is. This is what the expectation, this is what the vibe is. And yeah. Yep. Great job. Grade A, green flags, Brennan, Alexa. Wunderbar.
Yeah, I'm with that.
Okay. Can we talk about Nancy and Bartise? I'm sorry. I gotta jump in there. I gotta jump into at least the first conversation they have around this bullshit.
Let's go. What do you want to say? What's brimming energetically for you?
We left off with the conversation that Bartise and Nancy, like last week's episode and the Love is Blind episodes we had in 3 and 4, we left off with Bartise seriously putting his foot in his mouth, being all like, Raven's a smoke show, Steve's super hot, tight clothes, and Nancy's kind of sitting there like, deer in headlights, like not knowing how to respond. I want to give Nancy a hug. I think this girl is like speaking up for herself in the most amazing way possible many times during this episode. One of which where she gently brings this up in not like a you're in trouble way, right? Like she was so kind about it and was just like, hey, so I'm a little surprised. I'm a little confused about how you know, you were attracted to both of us only because Raven and I are very different women. You know, I tend to be very positive and like, you know, bubbly, and Raven's a little bit more like, I can't like, you know, negative in that way. And Bartise, I thought, answered initially very well. Like, I was like, that tracks. I can understand that. And he basically says that him and Raven really connected over the fitness side of things, but he knew that Raven's energy was lower than himself. So he knew with Raven, he would always need to be the one to kind of bring the energy. Whereas with Nancy, Bartise explains, like, they bounce off each other, they play off each other and kind of like elevate the mood together as a team. And that's why he chose Nancy. So at first I was like, great conversation, squashed it, understandable. If I was Nancy, I probably would have thrown in like, totally understand you wanting to be honest with me. If I'm being honest, it's hard to hear you call other women a smoke show when you haven't called me that. So just be mindful of the terms you decide to use is like what I would lovingly try and say in that moment, you know?
Yeah. The amount of times that
What's your idea?
In this show are talking about like, I like, typically I have a physical connection with someone that looks like her person who you very much know is a real person that I also connected with. But with you, babe, it's different. Like I'm actually surprised that this didn't really come up, but maybe it came up a little bit with Zenab, which we're definitely going to talk about, but it's just sort of like, how is it supposed to make them feel?
Yeah. Cause like, think about this. Like, if any woman did that to a man, like, this person's so hot and like, yeah, you're cute, babe. Like, they would feel the same way. So it's like, we need to just be mindful, like, of the way that we talk about our partners and like how we communicate those things. Because this, even if I'm going to pull from my own life, my last partner wasn't necessarily my type, but I was wildly attracted to him for a bunch of other reasons and other ways. And my attraction for him grew over time. And I very much made it a point to tell him that, you know what I mean? Like in various ways, intimately with us together. And like, there were even times on the couch just having, cause we also were that couple that like would have gnarly and philosophical conversations. I would also just tell him those words. I'm wildly attracted to you. Like, and hearing that feels so good, you know, but I'm not sitting there being like, well, this person has a 6-pack and you don't.
Right. It's the
like,
comparison.
I would never. Yeah. It's like, we just need to be mindful. Cause like Bree said last week, those are inside thoughts. Those aren't thoughts that need to be pointed out to our partner, you know, just be careful.
Please.
If you wouldn't want to hear it, don't say it. If you wouldn't want to hear it, don't say it.
Yeah, and it's like Bartise got a pass from me kind of last week because he was under the influence, but when he started doing this shit sober in the morning, I was like, you're done, dude. Like I'm so done with you. I
know.
I have to talk about the conversation that he had with Raven the next day.
So after this, which I wanted to throw my shoe at the fucking TV.
This pool party.
Okay.
This pool party.
Fucking producers instigating this shit.
This fucking pool party sent everyone off track except for like Alexa and Brennan,
who are just going strong.
But like the way that Bartise was trying to connect with Raven is he was basically fishing to I saw exactly what he was doing.
Yeah.
He was trying to be really blatant in letting her know that he is attracted to her. He feels that way about her. And he wanted to see if she felt the same way about him. He wanted to see if I really reveal a little, is she going to tell a little bit to me about how she has felt about me while we were in the pods, now that we're out of the pods. And Raven gave him nothing. And I lived for it. I was fucking living for it.
Yeah.
She was just straight rejecting him at every turn with sincerity and kindness. And she was just like, we're just like not, what were we going to talk about? Going to the gym? Tee-hee-hee-hee. That was never going to work. And he's just like, you can tell like his heart and his erection.
He was disappointed.
Deflating. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It was really ridiculous. Like I was infuriated with Bartise because it is the sketchiest, most tiptoeing around cheating as you can get. And then to turn around and like go to Nancy and be like, everything's great. You know what I mean? Or like, this is what I value in you or whatever. So nasty. Go ahead.
That's what I'm saying. Like, this shit is so off base to be like, that kind of conversation is really way off base to have while you are currently
when you're
in
engaged
partnership with someone else. Yeah.
Yeah. It was really gross. I really appreciated Raven just being like, look, emotionally we're incompatible. Like, that's it at the end of the day. Yeah, I said, nice job, girl, but damn, Bartise, that was shady as fuck. Poor Nancy is what I put. Like, I'm saying Nancy, run, is what I'm saying right now after seeing this not once, if I'm going to say not once, not twice, but 3 times now with Raven, because I'm counting the party that they all first had separately from the conversation he had with Nancy later that night. Yeah. So anyway, it feels really icky. It feels really icky. I'm suspicious. I don't trust him, not only now with just Raven, but like women in general, women he meets at the gym. It's like, whoa, bro. Whoa.
Yeah. In effort to follow the through line of Bartise and Nancy in these 2 episodes, I'm going to give another example as to why I do not trust Bartise. I want to give him a little bit of grace and say, like, there are moments in this early cohabitation with Nancy where you can tell, like, he is more mature than the average 25-year-old male. Or at least,
totally.
Unfortunately, the bar that we have for them is, like, in hell.
Pretty low.
So he's like, very low. So he's like stepping a little bit above that. But I think the thing that I also don't trust about him is, so Nancy starts to tell him about her like financial endeavors, mostly her like real estate flipping.
Fucking girl is slanging. I'm like, she's a woman. Yes.
She's a badass boss bitch. Listen, Nancy, I am so glad that I like trusted my gut about how I felt about Nancy at the start of the show. Like, I have another hot take, but she is such a down ass bitch. She's so smart. She really knows what she's talking about, and she knows herself very well. Like, there's very few shreds of insecurity in there, and I can only imagine what she had to do to like get there, because we all have to get there. But my hot take is, I think while her and Raven do present very differently on the surface, I actually think that they are more alike as women in the world than they suspect.
Oh, yeah. I totally get that. Yeah. Because this is like, when I first met Nancy, I was anxious about like trusting the Elle Woods energy that she carries with her, like very bubbly, very glass half full, very happy. And I feel the reason that I don't trust, and I'm going to be very honest here. Whenever I see that in almost anybody, I'm a little like, hesitant, only because it makes me cautious if like where it's coming from, if it's a people pleaser type energy, or if it's like, because what ends up I've seen a lot is they present that way and then there's like a crash, and it's like very like woe is me, like, because the true limiting beliefs that lie under that presentation of the bubbliness. Now, now that I've gotten to know Nancy, I'm like, oh my God, she is a gem of a human being. Raven, on the other hand, is way more chilled, way more standoffish in her energy, but still a badass bitch in being able to pay for the lifestyle that she desires, which, by the way, no shame in that. Like, and she very much has a conversation with SK later about that. And I understood where she was coming from, even though I felt maybe it could have been delivered a little bit more compassionately. But I think that, and this is what's fascinating the more that I do the work on myself, because I say this all the time. The things that I've always caught myself judging within others were always things that I judged about myself, or felt that I wasn't allowed to do. So for example, punctuality. I used to always be so on time. I would be early. And if anyone was like late, it made me angry. It would be like, how dare you? Because I would never allow myself to be late. And so I would be judgmental of people who didn't manage their time well. And over time, I had to really sit with that and be like, what are you trying? Why do you like, what is this about? And it's because deep down, I felt so anxious about always being on time that if I was late, I would be punished. And so it became this whole like internal world of like giving myself grace and like learning how to give other people grace, and all of that fell into place. With Raven and Nancy, I just feel that at their core, they're very similar, ambitious women. However, on the surface, due to whatever their own like past, conditioning was, and or how they were raised, their own limiting beliefs, they judge each other based off of how they present themselves in this world. Like Nancy's very bubbly, Raven's very stoic and like standoffish in some ways. But I feel that that's because they feel, or they've decided, like that's how a successful person will show up in this world. You know what I mean? And so poor, like Raven with whatever she is, like, cause I used to be that way. I used to think that successful people couldn't be Elle Wood's energy.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I'm glad that you mentioned that. I hadn't thought about it that way. I didn't think about the way in which they may have viewed and understood success in other women in particular. And I think that's a big trend for us. Okay, so I got off track because I was going to say why I don't trust Bartise, and here's the moment. I don't trust Bartise because he was listening to Nancy talk about how she acquires the properties that she has and her current financial status, not the financial status, but the legal status with them. So Nancy owns two properties with her ex-partner. And some properties she owns by herself, but these two properties he was the realtor for, and they are both in both of their names. And Bartise was like, that doesn't make me feel very good. And he's like valid for having questions. He's valid for being able to be like, okay, what does that mean? How involved is he? Nancy, like the true motherfucking boss that she is explaining it. And she's like, these are the facts. This is the situation. I totally understand. And then what I think I heard happen is Bartise heard that money calling. And he was like, oh, actually, I think that I'm very much okay with this. Silly me.
Let's grow our wealth together. I didn't like it. I don't
trust him.
Me neither. It's like you're going to be with her just because she has money and end up cheating on her with the Raven types that you meet out in the world because you think they're hot. And it's so not okay. Yeah, I completely agree. I heard the same thing. So many alarm bells going off. And what did you think about his conversation with Nancy where he was talking about his past relationships and he was saying how like, for one reason or another, like they fizzle. Yeah, I'm like, that's a reflection of you. Like, guys, love is a choice. It's like, yes, it's gonna fizzle. If you think that you're always gonna wake up and be like, oh my God, I just want to fuck your brains out because I'm so in love with you and everything's great and there's birds chirping and you're bringing me coffee in bed and like, it's all fine and good. Like, if you think that it's always gonna be that 100% of the time, of course there's gonna be a fizzle. Love is a choice. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't work on maintaining that kind of excitement and joy and passion in your relationship, but it does take intentionality and it does take implementing new skills and communication. And so my question for Bartise, if anyone were to say that to me, I'd be like, what do you think is the culprit of the fizzle? I would ask back. I would be like, tell me more about that. Where does the fizzle come from? Because it's not that you just fall out of love.
Yeah.
So let's talk more about it.
I think it shows
setting the ground.
He's just lacking self-awareness for what actually happened in his past relationships. Like, it's very clear that he hasn't spent a whole lot of time thinking about like, so my relationships continue to like hit this mark. I'm less interested in them. I find myself seeing a potential with other people and it fizzles. Like, okay, why does that happen? What do you think for you contributes to that pattern? What do you think that your partner was doing that may have contributed to that pattern? But like, where is the self-reflection so that you can see that this doesn't happen? Because all that I'm feeling, all that I got from these last two episodes is like, Bartise is having a lot of doubts because he's recognizing that like, he's into Nancy. He has a good connection with Nancy. He definitely likes Nancy's financial situation.
Yeah.
But he's not, I can tell he didn't say this and he hasn't called me lately. So I haven't heard this from him, but I can tell that he's not feeling so confident that he is all about 10 toes down for Nancy in a way that he's not going to get himself in trouble, which I think he's very much cycling through his mind of his experiences of getting in trouble with like other women.
Yeah. Yeah.
Period.
He, unfortunately, in this case, love is very much blind for them in the sense that he loves who Nancy is, but doesn't love how she looks. And it's fucking with his brain. Like, it's really, yeah. Yeah. Because if they stayed in that pod, I guarantee for another couple days, guaranteed he would have been continuing to be like, Nancy's my girl. I'm so into her. She's so great. Like, we're best friends. We have that vibe. And I don't feel their relationship started going downhill until he saw Raven and was tempted by other hot vixens.
Exactly. I think it was his awareness of his attraction to Raven. Yes, was about Raven, but I also think for Bartise, it's about him and what he knows about himself. Yeah. When it comes to the way that he feels when he's physically attracted to someone that is like his type. I don't know. It's giving gross.
We're moving on. I don't want to talk about Bartise anymore.
No. Okay, good.
Until next time.
And honestly, the last thing that I will say about Bartise is that him meeting Nancy's family was like it wasn't actually funny, but it was funny to me because maybe there's some critics who watching this were like the family was a little abrasive when it came to like not really welcoming in, but I'm like, nah, fuck it. I think that they're noticing a lot of red flags. I think that they're seeing a lot of Bartise's bullshit. And I think that they're like, this is not a match for the woman that we raised and the quality of person that we raised. And that we know, I think that they're seeing all of this hard work that we have put into establishing like and taking care of our family, each other, and what Nancy has done for herself. We see this little motherfucker taking that shit down and we are not having it. That's what I was reading between those lines.
Agreed. Yeah. Agreed. Her mom her mom was intense. I was like, oh my God, I would be scared if I was Bartise with her mom. Ooh.
Yeah. Oh, I'd be shaking in my little boots.
For real.
Let's talk about another big heavy hitter.
Colleen and Matt.
Oh, not his name isn't. Yeah, I'm sorry. What? My head was in Cole and Zeneb.
Okay, let's go there.
We got to talk about Cole and Zeneb first before we talk about Colleen and Matt because Colleen and Matt, they have like a whole thing because of the Cole thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's what I understand is like the issue with Cole and Zeneb. Cole is unfiltered, as continues to be noticed. Like it comes up a lot.
Just like Bartise.
Yeah. He has a lot to say. He really says exactly how he feels. And while Cole is, in my professional opinion, a certified idiot. He is a certified idiot. Zeneb is incredibly insecure.
Yeah.
And she asks him questions that she doesn't want the fucking answers to, and it's pissing me off.
I remember learning that lesson. Don't ask questions you don't want the answer to. But I learned that when I was like 24. And I'm so glad I learned it when I was 24.
And I recognize it. It's coming up. It's the insecurity that's going, satisfy me, put me to rest.
Yeah. Because they think if they know, they think if you think that if you know all the details, this also happens with like past exes, as well as like if there was any infidelity and they're trying to choose to repair. There's this belief that if I know every single detail, I'm going to feel better. It is quite literally the opposite, because now it gives your brain more material to work with and fueling your insecurities.
Yes.
And it's like, girl, I feel for her. I feel for Zainab. I feel for that.
And it's like, it's also like the questions that she's asking, it's not like, how do you feel about everyone? It's like, it starts with, how would you rate me?
Yeah.
Reassure
me, tell me I'm amazing.
Yeah, reassure me, like all of these things. And it's like, I can hear her self-awareness. She's like, maybe it's my insecurity. And I'm like, yes, it is. But I feel for her because I understand where that comes from within her. And I don't like hold it against her for having these like pretty shitty habits, but she's setting herself up for failure in every single way, because you're either going to be met with, unless she's with someone who's like Zainab, you're everything to me.
Yeah.
I do believe that sometimes even when our anxiety is so insatiable in that way, when we are trying to date people that are like actually 100% all about us, we can never get enough.
No.
We still can't, like, the thirst
we have to
is
give it to
never
ourselves.
quenched.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and I think that's the big lesson that everybody needs to learn is like, even if you are satiated and you have a partner who's like, you're amazing, you're beautiful, you're the most gorgeous person I've ever been with, I love you for who you are, you're so unique, you're so this, you're so, like, you're going to still want more if you're not giving it to yourself. Like, there's nothing. And then this is usually the wound that comes up is your partner continues to tell you those things, but your own limiting beliefs, you don't receive it. So there's like this impermeable, invisible force field that, like, even if you have a partner that truly adores you, you don't believe it because of your own shit. Been there before. For sure.
Period.
Yeah.
That's exactly the thing that is problematic. If any person watching this show, listening to our show, relates to the patterns that Zainab is displaying, what I want you to really consider is like, let's play this out, because whether it's not the root of you're with a guy or a partner rather, that is just, as we said, all about you and it's still not enough. Let's say it's a dude that's just there, dating, still getting to know each other, casual, whatever. No one is committed to one another, period.
Yeah.
You're either looking down the barrel of someone who's going to lie to you.
Oh my God.
And just tell you what they know you want to hear, because they know that they know what the right answer to these questions are. Babe, 10 out of 10. Babe, never seen another girl in my life. I am blind. Can't tell you.
Yeah.
Or you are dealing with a Cole who's a certified fucking idiot. And he's just going to tell you what the fuck he thinks because you are asking him.
Yeah. I also I've dated people like Cole.
Yeah, me too.
And I really, there's a few, and this is where, like, we need to understand that, like, I think I did not like the way that he spoke to Zay. I kind of want to get in, like, it's not even idiotic. It's low key abusive, because him being like, what do you want me to do? Tell you that I'm blinded. I've never seen another. And by the way, for every man, if he were to say that he's lying, like, every man sees and like, it got really nasty and gaslighty and blame shifty. And then when she starts to take over responsibility, she's like, it's my insecurities. It's something I need to work on. And he's like, yeah. And I want to be like, both, yes, insecurities, Zainab needs to work on those. And simultaneously, what you're doing and how you're treating her and how you're speaking to her is quite literally igniting those. Because was she feeling that way about herself before she was dating Cole and engaged to Cole? And if not, and those are insecurities that you've, like, confronted on your own, but now you start dating a person who's not only he's instigating that insecurity. It's not just coming up. He is instigating it and then throwing it in her face. And it's toxic, and it's been normalized because of honesty. Fuck that shit. No, I'm sorry. We're ditching that script.
We are ditching that fucking script. I totally agree. Like, it is not okay to just use honesty as a cover for you being an asshole.
No.
Like, we're done with it. I think what is happening here, because I want to believe that this is neither of their best versions of themselves. And I think it's because that's what they bring out in one another.
I think Cole is who he is only because of his confessional during the pods. Like, he was always so weird.
I think he's an asshole.
Yeah.
But I
don't think Zay is usually this insecure, is what I feel. Yeah.
I think that this stuff lives deep within her.
Yeah.
I do.
Oh, I'm sure it does. Yeah.
You know?
I just don't think it's always triggered. Like, it's being triggered right now.
Agreed. I agree. And I think that he is doing very little to be aware of, like,
to nurture it. He's just putting it up 100%. In flames.
I mean, we can dissect this for a year.
Days. Yeah.
But the thing is that they're just not good together. They're not good. No, let me rephrase. They are not good for each other. They are really bad, because this is what I'm noticing is like the two of them are bringing out the worst qualities in one another. They are continuing, like you can even see it in Cole's face. Like, yes, he's an asshole. I can also see that the light is dimming from his eyes. Like he's looking more tired.
His blue eyes are turning
like,
brown.
But there's just like gray, and he's like a young dude. They're on a paid, all expense free vacation in Malibu. Like homeboy should be a little bit more relaxed than he is. They are unhappy. And I think that contributes to what we see later. I'm going to get to the pool party, but I'm not there yet. I'm not ready. I'm not emotionally ready. But when he calls his family and he tells them, what I imagine happened, this is my hypothesis. I don't think that they're actually surprised that Cole would meet someone and want to get engaged in a short amount of time. He did that already. He got engaged after 2 months of dating someone. So when he said that they weren't supportive, I was like, I don't know if I buy it. And it's not that I don't buy it from the family. I think that they probably heard in his voice how unhappy he sounds. And they were like, this is obviously a mistake. They obviously don't know the whole story, and they don't realize how much he contributes to his own unhappiness. Yeah. But like, I think that they're hearing that. They're like, you're going to marry someone when you like are struggling to make it work. Like, no. Yeah.
I think that's a part of it. I also think it's a little bit boy who cried love, in the sense, like, not boy who cried wolf, but like, oh my God, I'm in love again, family. Look, she's my wife, family. Like and oh God, if I'm being honest, that was high school Alex. It was like every boyfriend was the one. Like, oh my God, this is going to be the one. We're going to get married and have babies. And it's like, I remember my family being like, ta-ta, like a cute little kid thinking, like experiencing all these feelings for the first time. And I get it now, like looking back on it in hindsight. And I feel that Cole is still there. I think he's like, I think a lot of people are still there, regardless of age, because I think we have romanticized this concept of love and relationship to be a certain thing that we all are so excited to get there that we assume we jumped the gun when it's like, y'all don't even know each other's middle names. You don't even know what you're allergic, like what the other person's allergic to, or like, you know, like, and you're like head over heels. Like it just doesn't add up. You know what I mean? So I feel that it's partially, yes, his family like thinking like, oh, here he goes again. Cole will believe it when we see it, like kind of like dismissing him in that way. And mixed with what you said as well. So I don't know. Yeah. We don't know his family personally. This is just our hypotheses with what we've seen with Cole and heard from Cole. Yeah. There's more behind it. I wonder if we'll meet them, but I'm not sure. And I think we will. I even think that his meeting with Zainab's like adoptive mom was also telling, and I think that like Cole and Zainab's mom really connected over their faith. Agreed. Oh my God. I think that triggered me. That was, sorry, we'll talk about it later. I don't blame you. I haven't been triggered like that in a long time. So we'll talk about it when we get there. Yeah. Fuck. Yes. It's so bad. It's happening right now. Okay. Regulate. How do we regulate? I'm just going to breathe. We're good. I'm laughing. I'm not like so dysregulated that I can't be here, but yeah, it was triggering. We'll talk about it. Let's go. We'll continue. Pool party first. We got to go to the pool party. Okay, so pool party happens, and Cole is, first of all, he's like trying to get Zenab in the pool, and Zenab's like, listen, I'm not your pool girly. It's not for me. And then eventually, like, we see Cole and Colleen talking, and that's when Cole is checking in with Colleen about her and Matt's relationship. Colleen's like, yeah, I'm happy. Like, yeah, we haven't really dealt with much, but like, I'm happy. And then Cole's like, blah, blah, blah. And then, of course, Colleen asks him, and Cole isn't even like that. He's pushing her. He's like, really? There's nothing wrong. There's nothing. He like, and I was like, ew, gross. Stop pushing her to like talk shit about her fiance. He wants to. He wants to know. Weasel in. We know. He's a bit of he's a shit stirrer. And then he starts to tell her like there's an asking of like, who are you attracted to? He says her. She sort of reciprocates. Yes, I'd go up to you at a bar. They sort of have a giggle, and it just got weird. It was flirty. It crossed a line. It did. It crossed a line. Yeah, I think that
if I was in partnership with either of those people, and that's how they were talking to someone else that they were attracted to, I'd be like, oh, so I'm an idiot is what I look like. Gotcha. Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. It was bad. It was real bad. And Cole instigated the whole thing because I really feel that Colleen was like she was trying to pull a Raven. She was trying real hard to pull a Raven, but
yeah, except she doesn't feel the same way that Raven does, really.
Agreed. Maybe I don't even know if it's that or if it's more that she felt so awkward that she kind of fawned and was like, let me just give this to him so he shuts up. I think a lot of women do that too. It's like, we don't know what to say. So we feel that if we comply with whatever we know your intent is, you're just going to leave us alone finally. And it came back to literally bite her in the ass, but we'll talk about that in a minute.
Yes. Yes. And I agree with you, by the way, because I think that that's like the crux of the issue that comes up later for them, is that there was a no response. There was no effort to like set a boundary with Cole.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's that. So then Cole and Zay now they have the whole conversation around the rape me thing, which we kind of already touched on. And then they go to meet her fam.
Yeah. So I think that this is a place where like Cole and Zenab were like, they're at this rate, they're just making last ditch efforts to find connection with one another, because it's just so obvious that it's not a thing. It's just not a thing.
No, it's not. And the
I think that's where the faith came up as well.
I was going to say, I think that's the one like grounding foundation that they really have. And the other thing with coming from like being raised in the church with this kind of mindset, there is a level of that's all you need. As long as you both lean on the Lord, you're going to be okay. Even saying that like causes immediate like in my body
acid reflux.
Yeah, basically it's that feeling. But you're told that. And if I'm being honest, I entered my marriage with that thought. Like, this is a good enough thing, but we both love Jesus, so everything's going to be okay, And that was bullshit. And so for me, watching that happen, and also the like abrupt jumping into prayer thing, like not like asking like, are you comfortable praying together? Like, it was just like, I'm going to start praying over you now. That used to happen to me with one of my parents, even at Disneyland. Like I would leave a ride and all of a sudden she'd decide to like lay hands on me in the middle of a park. And I'm like, oh my God, here now? Like really? Like humiliating? Yeah. This is awkward. Start praying in tongues in the middle. And I like, oh my God, like it was awkward. But anyway, so for me, just like sharing and being vulnerable with you all, like that was hard for me. And I sat there and like regulated through it, but I felt my body very much responding in a negative way. Like, don't put that on me. Don't put that expectation on this person, like without asking for consent. Like, I just think that I personally feel that prayer and meditation and any kind of spiritual act is so intimate that to subject anybody to that without agreement it can be really vulnerable. And Cole and I mean, I huffed too, like you snap into, it's almost like militant. Like when that happens, you take the head is down, automatic. Hands are, it's automatic, but that doesn't mean that it didn't cause me discomfort. Right. So it's like, I responded to appease, but it's another version of a fawn response that I'm very familiar with. So
that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that, because I think that gives a little bit more of an insight. And we can't assume that that's exactly how either of those, that's how Cole might have been feeling. Yeah. But I think that it's a really unique perspective to share about like why this felt like such an anchor for Cole, because for him, it's like, it's the last thing. And he's right now, he's in a desperate place to feel grounded in his decision to choose Zenab, or choose to be like on this particular path. And he, as you mentioned, that militant, like snap into formation when it comes to prayer, especially sharing in space with someone who you see eye to eye with in your faith. Ooh, interesting. There's that as well. But he was so desperate for that I also wonder if that encouraged
comforting.
his or supported his lock into that moment, because also based on his morals, like he needs it. And he especially needs it right now when everything else feels very
That's the other thing I want to say is if I had $1 for every time I dated a Christian man who pushed me to pursue, like, be sexual with them before I was ready, who were, like, cheated on me and all of that. It's just, I just want to do a little shout out that just because someone labels themselves as some kind of religion, whether it's, Christianity, Judaism, is like whatever it is, it doesn't automatically mean that they're good, honest, transparent, loyal people, Yes. And I think that a lot of people hide behind that.
Look at what we're seeing here. Like Zeneb and Cole both individually have so many natural, organic responses coming from their bodies that are saying that this does not feel good. This relationship doesn't feel good. Being around you doesn't make me feel good. Hearing the things that you say to me doesn't make me feel good. And yet they are willing to ignore all of it because they are putting their faith in they're in their faith. And like it's being used in a way that it is not intended. Instead it's moving people. It's moving these two people further away from trusting their gut instincts, which is saying, this isn't the right match for me. This isn't a good relationship for me. And that causes a pretty impactful effect on your relationship with your intuition, your relationship with your gut, and you have a very hard time trusting it afterwards. Yep. Yeah.
Very, very
gross.
Now let's talk about the other most triggering part of these 2 episodes, which was the Matt and Colleen argument. Yeah. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God.
There's so much that I didn't like about this. Now, I understood why Matt was upset about Colleen's discussion with Cole, though the way that he handled it and also the responsibility that he actually had for how horrible that all went, despite his perception. I wish that he had some self-awareness that like he was triggered. Matt was triggered. Matt was cheated on in his last relationship, in a relationship that he'd been in for 10 years. He's in conversation with Colleen. Colleen's trying to be honest with him about what Cole was talking to her about. And like, how do you be honest about that conversation with Cole and be honest about how you responded without leaving out any of these details that are going to make you look bad, even though you didn't fucking do anything. She didn't do anything, you know? And he's like icing her out. The way that he was like eating while they were like having that conversation was equal parts condescending and very, very, unnerving. I was like, how are you eating right now?
Yeah, how do I want to say this? This was also very familiar to me from past like narcissistic relationships I had been in. Both my narc parent and my narc ex treated me this way when they would get mad. And so it was less triggering for me to sit with because I feel I've processed way more of that than the religious aspect, which is good awareness for me. So it was easier for me to watch, but I wanted to jump through that TV and like stand up for Colleen because it was just so inappropriate with how he was going about everything. And this is the thing that's frustrating is like, I can also understand why Matt's upset. I've been cheated on. I know when you watch your partner kind of connect with someone from a distance and you see like that zap of energy, how it can bring up a lot of like, oh shit, am I losing them? Do they like them better than me? But the way that he went about this entire thing was so contemptuous and, like you said, condescending and accusatory and violently angry. And I don't even mean physically, just verbally violent and really not safe and a precedent that shouldn't be set. So
I agree.
It really got uncomfortable for me when he follows, she does a beautiful thing. They're eating dinner at a table together. He starts, attacking her for the conversation he saw with,
Cole.
Cole, thank you very much. And what ends up happening is he just loses it on her. And he keeps saying, it takes 3 words to shut it down. That's my man. Like, you should have done this. You should have done that, but you didn't. You had this conversation. And so she finally is like, give me a second. Beautiful job. She's like, let me take a second. She was really calm about it. She wasn't like, fuck you, I need time away she just excused herself to the bathroom. And this, for me, is very similar to what we were unpacking with Bachelor in Paradise when Romeo followed Jill. It's the same thing. Mm-hmm. He sits there for a second and then decides that he's not done coming at her. So he follows her. Yeah. He follows her into the bathroom and then continues to shame her for what she's done, even though she's like trying to explain, trying to apologize. And it is the most, like, at that point, Matt is deteriorating the relationship because he is making her feel so emotionally unsafe and physically unsafe by violating the privacy that she just requested. It made me really, really uncomfortable. And he started saying things like, do you hear yourself? That's gaslighting. You're engaged to me and you didn't know how to respond to someone telling you that they think you're attractive. That's contempt. Like, how dare you, you know? And then he leaves the building, and he starts kind of going at it with, I didn't know if it was the cameraman he was talking to or the PA, but he starts to say, like, if it was your wife, wouldn't you be upset? If the roles were reversed, I would be the player here.
I was scared of him.
Yeah, it got really bad. It got really bad. Yeah, at this point, I would tell Colleen to run because that's enough. Like, I don't need to see anymore. That's enough. Because if that's how he's going to treat her now this early in the relationship, what's it going to be like 6 months to a year from now? Yeah. When he gets more comfortable and the cameras aren't around. He was
triggered and he really needs to take care of that part of himself that went through that. Like, yeah. I feel for him as an individual who is left to be affected clearly in the way that he has been from his last relationship. And it does not excuse absolutely losing your goddamn mind over a conversation that she had on the edge of a pool in a television show that they were intending something like this to happen. Yeah. You know, like, dude, absolutely, like, get it together. I worry that he hasn't done enough to acknowledge that he needs to heal from this. And so he has no idea how to take care of those moments when he feels it. He has no idea how to take care of himself. No. And he's going to expect Colleen to be an absolutely perfect partner. And if she's not a perfect partner, he's going to feel justified in losing his fucking cool while never taking any responsibility for taking care of the fact that he has a response to being triggered by the hint of jealous or of infidelity. And I worry that Colleen is so young and still learning more and more and more about herself as an individual, as a partner every day, that she does not yet have the tools to redirect him on this stuff. It's just sort of like, I didn't get the sense that like they were ever really able to like talk about it and she could really advocate for herself. And that's what I worry about.
No, but he wouldn't have responded to it. And that's my issue with Matt, is that he shouldn't even be in a relationship right now. He needs to go to therapy or work with a qualified coach, because it's like what he did to her, it was like, yes, he was triggered. He also slipped into abusive tactics. And it's just like, there's, like you said, there's no amount of being triggered that ever justifies hurting someone else and coming after someone else. And so it's one of those things where Colleen tried to do the right thing, where she separated herself to allow her time and space to calm down and allow him time and space to calm down. But because Matt is so lost in his anger sauce, he didn't take that time to regulate and actually be like, what do I need to vocalize here? Because telling someone how they should have behaved is never going to be well received. If he were to be like, over dinner, imagine this, we're at dinner, I'm Matt, you're Colleen, right? And we're sitting there, and how would the conversation have gone if he was like, hey baby, you know, when we were at the pool party earlier today, I noticed you talking to Cole, and it seemed from my perspective that there was a little bit of a connection. And if I'm being really honest, it made me a little insecure after what I've been through. and I really love you and I really care about this relationship and how we've been building and what we've put in, and I see myself marrying you at the end of these however many weeks. I just want to check in with you. Like, how are you feeling about that? How did the conversation go down from your point of view? Like, do you have a connection with him, or are you feeling confident in us? Like, I just want to understand, because this is how, it made me question. It would have been a completely different conversation.
Totally different conversation. Colleen may have felt like she could have actually spoke on her behalf.
Yeah.
And been heard. And I think, because here's the thing, that's a beautiful alternative. And it's not going to be possible without Matt taking into any consideration what he needs to do to regulate before he even has that language, those words, and the ability to access that tone to have that kind of conversation. If it were me, what works for me, there's lots of different ways to regulate yourself. There's lots of different ways to find what's bothering you and what's upsetting you and how you want to deal with it moving forward. For me, I need time alone. I don't need a whole lot of time alone. I need a little bit of time alone, preferably in front of a bathroom mirror, so that I can, one, breathe until I have like a good enough grip on, like, feeling my feet to the floor and my ass to the seat. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
And then I need to look at myself in the mirror and I need to be like, what am I upset about? What's bothering me?
What is this really about?
And then once I can identify what I'm actually upset about, exactly. Once I can identify what I'm upset about, I can get to a place where I access how might it be an appropriate way to talk about this with my person who has not yet done anything wrong, to my knowledge.
Yeah.
How can I talk about this with my person? How can I help this get clarified? How can I talk, like, what questions do I need to ask? How do I lead with how this made me feel? It's one, important that they got to know how I feel. Then two, I gotta make sure I ask what was going on, because I do want to know and I do have questions and I am scared.
Yeah. Yeah.
Boom. Then fucking have dinner and eat like a regular person.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, I also want to bring awareness to, like, it's okay to be panicking that, like, if I was Matt, because first of all, I have been Matt, I have been cheated on, and I have then entered relationships where I was so suspicious of being cheated on again that I was on high alert with every glance the person took to their phone, with every conversation they had with someone of the opposite sex. I was paranoid. I was reading into it from my trauma lens, like, oh shit, this means this. And so when those feelings arise in me, I need to punch a pillow. Like, I need to be able to deal with that panic energy first before I can even tap into my logical mind. And so if that's something that you relate with and you sense that anxiety, that like, oh, holy fuck, anger, whatever, frustration, insecurity coming up, and it's like more of an aggressive, because like with Matt, it was more of an aggressive energy. He needed to give himself the time to be in a safe space outside of Colleen's visual, ability to like punch pillows, scream in a pillow, and like let that out so that he could calm down and then get to a place of like, okay, now that I've expressed my frustration and anger and fear around this, okay, like I can actually use my brain and be like, all right, this is what's going on. I think that, because it's not the feeling of anger that's a problem. I think a lot of times people watch something like Matt and they're like, wow, he's angry, that's bad. And it's like, it's not bad that he's angry. It's what he allowed his anger to do to his behaviors and words that are the issue. And so we just need to like take time to be with the anger and allow it to be. Anger is a neutral emotion until we start hurting other people with it. Same with sadness. Sadness, a lot of people use sadness to manipulate. That's not okay. We need to be with our sadness. So emotions are neutral until we allow them to dictate our behaviors and words. Then they get icky. So yeah, Matt and Colleen, like I honestly just feel Colleen should tap out and be done after that. Not because Matt's an awful human being, but because he has a lot of healing and growth that needs to be done before he'll ever establish a healthy relationship.
Yeah, it's just like if this was a person that she was dating in a more regular, slower paced timeline, maybe there's room for like her to just have time before having to make the decision about getting married. I think that's what's tripping me up. Like, I agree with you. Like, I think that this for me would have been like, ooh, I'm outie. I have said, didn't you just hear me at the beginning of this episode? I said no to a bad kiss. I will say no to a lot. I will say no to a lot. But I think like there is not enough time. They need Dr. Pepper, really, in here, or you and
we need some Dr. Pepper, or us. And I don't know. I feel like this engagement situation, because you're right, a lot of people are like, well, now we're engaged. It's like, let's also be real. In this situation, that engagement means nothing compared to someone who's been together for 2 years and then they got engaged. Fuck it. Fuck it. It's a show, people. It's a show. Do what's best for you. Fuck the show. So the next morning, I really didn't like it because Colleen was like, we talked through it and everything's fine. And Matt's like, we made it a bigger deal than it needs to be. That was a red flag for me because no, we didn't make it a bigger deal. You made it a bigger deal, Matt. I just didn't feel he took any responsibility. And then he called it a communication issue. Yeah. Your communication issue, dude. Like, I just didn't feel that he had any remorse or shame around how he treated his fiance. And I was really looking for an apology, not only in the confessional, but to her. Like, guys, I'm so embarrassed about how I treated her last night. Like, none of that happened. So I'm sus. I'm watching you. Matt.
It was bad. Yeah, so I agree. Bad. All of those things are red flags to me as well.
Yeah. Okay, who's next?
Okay. Well, the only people that we haven't really like deep dived is SK and Raven, and I think like just to sum them up, I think we can talk about SK's mom meeting Raven and how that went, and then the SK Raven life grad school finance decision or discussion.
Yeah. Cool.
I think SK's mom, I think I thought that she was really lovely and it was really cool how I think it was cool how she approached meeting a brand new person who was like already engaged to her son. But I think that this conversation, the biggest takeaway for me was it was a good example of two people who just share a lot of the same values and goals for themselves, and how that makes them actually more compatible than them being energetically at the same place.
Yeah, totally. I always feel that these shows make meeting the parents more intense than it really is. Do you notice that? They like edit in these awkward pauses and stuff.
Oh yeah.
But his mom asked Raven why she picked SK out of all the men. And I really actually appreciated Raven's answer because it was so like practitioner-y in a way. And I loved it. She was just so like, well, we have similar family values and like how we envision our futures are very similar. And I was like, girl, yes, big picture dream, instead of like, you don't go to the gym like I go to the gym. Like, fuck that shit. In the scheme of things, that does not matter. And so SK's mom said she felt really good about them. The only thing that worries her is Raven's family also being a little skeptical and not supportive, kind of similar to what we hear from Cole's family. So we'll see. I will say this. I will say that I'm liking the slow progress I'm seeing Raven and SK make. I am liking it. I thought their little chakra massage date was really cute. I really appreciated Raven noticing and acknowledging that SK was trying to meet her with bringing the energies, and she admitted that allowed her to try more too.
Meet him in the middle.
I really appreciated that about them. I also was kind of cracking up that she noticed how SK has velvet everywhere. I was dying laughing.
That was funny. I thought that was so funny. Honestly, like Raven was cracking me up these episodes because she was just like, she will say exactly how she feels. What did you think about their like first night together where she was all moody in the morning because she'd gotten a terrible night's sleep because like SK say the streets were calling. But really, it was like all of SK's like abroad friends and family calling at a very different time zone throughout the middle of the night. And she was just like glaring at him at the top of her eyeballs, being like, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
That was so funny.
I did too. I think it's one of those things where like this is what I think is so sweet and innocent about SK is he hears in his mind he's like, yeah, I have a lot of family in Nigeria. They're in a completely different time zone, so of course they're going to call me in the middle of the night. And him like being oblivious to the fact that that would impact someone else because he hasn't had I don't know how long it's been or if he has lived with someone else, but you know, clearly he hasn't had a partner where that's been an issue. But I also so understand, Raven, I'm a light sleeper and like my phone has to be on DND and like I cannot like know as minimal disruptions as possible throughout the night. So it's one of those things where, she was like voicing this need, and in like a playful way, I don't know. Like I think SK handled it really well. I think depending on the person, some people might have taken offense to how she was like being teasing about it. But yeah, she was like, let me get my coffee. Honest. She was being honest, but it was very like, it was very like stern, like to the point, you know, some people need a little bit more of a softer touch. So like I said, for her and SK, it works. Like SK doesn't take it personally like that when she's like being self-deprecating, like, let me get my coffee in before I come at you. Like, you know, like some people would be like, oh fuck, like, okay, Jesus, you know, but for people like Raven and SK, they can laugh at it. So they have a similar sense of humor in that way, which is very valuable for their relationship. But yeah, like we'll see. And he actually made it a point to say, well, I'll make sure that you don't hear it then. Like I'll leave the room or whatever. Like he very much was honoring that need that she's spoken up about it, which I wish we could have that more in relationships instead of like, let's talk about this problem more. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to be more mindful of that. It's like, okay, cool. That's all it needs to be.
Yeah, Raven and SK have been a slow burn that has been a really lovely progression to watch because you can tell that after a couple of days in their getaway and then the days while they're navigating early days of cohabitation and meeting families and stuff, that they are like very aligned, much closer together, very physically connected. And it's really beautiful to see. I did appreciate though that SK, notice he's like, you know, I'm going to need Raven to also make some compromises with me as well, because to your point, what you just mentioned is like, he's like, okay, I'll either take the phone outside or I'll do something else. He's trying to compromise for her based on her needs. And if SK doesn't start to feel like Raven's willing to do that with him a little bit, she's going to lose him. Yeah.
It's true. And so I'm interested to see how, because we haven't really seen Raven be like, I don't know if tested is the right word, but she hasn't had to do that yet. Like SK hasn't spoken up about something that he needs from her yet. So I'm curious to know if SK just hasn't had any needs to speak up or if he's like silencing himself to like make it work. You know what I mean? We'll find out. But I'm interested to see how Raven handles that when it comes up, because it's not a matter of if, it will. So we'll see.
Definitely.
We'll see.
Definitely. I think that's it.
So, well, the conversation around quality of living.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that I totally understand what she was trying to say. Because, like, SK's like, I'm still in grad school, so I'm at a point where, like, I'm not going to be able to financially contribute in the way that I'll be able to eventually financially contribute. And she just was like, I'm okay with that, and I'm happy to support you as long as it doesn't impact my quality of life. You know, and she starts to explain, like, I work really hard, like, I live the lifestyle I want to live because of how hard I work and how I've built myself up. So I'm happy to support you as long as it's not like I'm supporting both of us 100%, which was code for you still need to pay your half. And he agreed. He's like, yeah, of course, whatever bills that we agree to pay half on, for sure. So we'll see how we'll see how they move forward with that. But I thought the conversation was done pretty damn well on both parts, you know, because you could tell she felt uncomfortable, but she still said what she needed to say. And it wasn't like rude.
I agree. I think that they just kept it simple and they tried to have it. I was glad that they talked about it. I was glad that it was filmed and made to all of the edits, because I think that these conversations, especially about money, we need to be more familiar with these so that they can become less and less taboo, especially in our relationships. Because the thing is like, money out here is flowing in different ways across genders all the time now. So like we need to be more familiar with having some of these what start out as uncomfortable conversations about finances, because if you can't make it work, or you are not prepared to try to even talk about it, then you should split up, because most relationships actually end because of finances. Most divorces happen because of finances. So it's like, do yourself a favor, stick it out, figure it out. SK and Raven make a good example of like, as soon as they got to this place of like, okay, we're in like la la land right now, but we're talking about wedding. What does it look like after the wedding? What does it look like? He's like, I start school in September, and she's like, she wants to stay in her apartment that's close to her job. Like, this is the most appropriate time to have this conversation. Of course, I appreciated that SK was like, I was very upfront about school while we were in the pods, and that was a very good call to make. And I think like it's now incredibly relevant and at the perfect time to just start having them like two individual people like they are. They do individuals in a relationship so well. So I appreciate being able to see them handle that in a really difficult conversation.
Agreed.
Without losing their heads about it.
Now, red flag, green flag. What's your red flag?
Okay. Oh my God. Oh, Cole Bartise. Matt. Can we just give it to the men? Everyone but SK? Literally everyone but SK gets a red flag.
Yeah.
You'll need to fucking get your act together. I am tired.
Do your inner work. Do your inner work, bitches.
Like, and it's not all these men. We got SK. SK is an absolute... Listen, SK
the girls,
is a man.
Do your inner work.
Yeah, girls, do your inner work. But I am tired as like women, as a people, to like to be met with men who've never cared to resolve their trauma.
For real.
Men who think that it's like silly, funny, goofy to just be as honest as possible with no regard for how that impacts
and
other
then
people.
Throw it in your face as I'm being honest. Fuck that.
And you know what? Put Cole and Bartise in that same motherfucking camp.
Oh my God. Yeah, 100. Oh my God. I can't.
So,
I agree. I'm going to jump on the red flags to them all. And I actually want to bring something up that Cole and Zaynab did that we didn't talk about, but I think is very red flag for couples in general. And this is this concept of, we're good now because we talked through, we got through that. So now we're good. And this is the most self-sabotagey thing you can do to yourself. There's this concept that happens like, oh, now that we've hashed this argument out, we walk away from this situation and we tell ourselves like, we're never going to have to talk about that again because we just talked about it. We're never going to have this kind of argument again because now we're going to be good. From here on out, it's smooth sailing. From here on out, we're never going to have an uncomfortable conversation. We're never going to fight again. These are like the low-key subconscious limiting beliefs that we're like this much aware of because we all hope for that. We're like, now that we've talked through this, we're good. And now it's never going to happen again. And it's like, we cannot believe that. We cannot sit in this atmosphere of, or else if it does happen again, that means something's not right about this relationship. It is the worst sabotagey thing ever. The fight is neutral. The conflict is neutral. How you handle it and how you move through it together is what matters. And conflict very much breeds the opportunity for more emotional and physical intimacy. But when we put this expectation on ourselves and the relationship that we better not have to go through this again and talk about this again, we set ourselves up for failure, because now as it continues to happen again and again, you start to read into like, is this not the person for me? Is this not the right relationship for me? But really all that is relationships have challenges that you're going to need to navigate. And in most cases, you're probably going to have to navigate the same challenge over and over and over again, not because the other person's not trying. Ideally, for light surface things, sure. Like, but oh my God, honey, if I have to tell you to put your fucking boxers in the hamper one more time,
Yeah.
We can't live like that.
Yeah.
We can't. We have to find a way of being together that is sustainable without us trying to control and change the other person into who we think they should be.
Yeah.
That's just not
that resentment. That resentment that builds, that stress, it will kill you, honey.
It will.
It will literally kill you.
We need to change this mindset from relationships are happily ever after to relationships are growth to another growth to another growth to another growth. Like, we're always growing and evolving together. You know, not you're less than me because I do this way. That's so
true. And I'm glad that you said that, because like I've had a client tell me who is in a beautiful relationship, or like they really just try to work it out. But when we talk about this together, my client and I, they had said once, they were like, but is it supposed to be like, I don't always want to do this work. Is it always supposed to be like this? And I'm like, yeah, like you get to assess and evaluate if this is like the partnership for you, based on how it makes you feel. I will never be able to tell you if that is right or wrong.
No.
But yeah, it is about like, it is about having really weird, uncomfortable, difficult conversations to get to a new place of hopefully the kind of relationship that you both really want. And you can't really get there just by like riding on the train and being like, toot toot, here we go. You have to like, you have to fix the engine. You have to like fix the motors. You have to like change the oil, and you have to like, there's so much maintenance, and you will be surprised at the new things that you realize that you need to bring your attention to maintain. Oops, there goes your tire pressure light, you know, like didn't know about that. And you do have to put in that work. And if you have someone that you feel like is riding on that train with you and is like doing it with you, it'll be fine. Yeah. But man, that's hard to find, isn't it?
It can be. Yeah. And you know, and like you were saying, we all have our certain threshold. So it's like some people may choose to not want to have certain conversations around, like, I'm going to go back to the sex thing. There are some people out there who are like, you either have it or you don't with me. Like either we sexually connect or we don't. And they don't really want to put in the conversation around like, let's work together and talk about, and like, okay, to each their own. If you're the type of person that wants someone who's into all the kinks, is really sexually open so that you don't have to like respect someone's sexual boundaries, fine. That might be a compatibility. Honestly, I would say that's a difference of values, right? But when it comes to like maybe the hamper thing, the cleanliness, the organization thing, my moral of the story here is you need to decide what topics and areas in your life which you're willing to grow and learn and navigate with someone, and which ones where you're like, either they're going to be, you know, at this level or more than me, or it's not a match because our values are different, right? So it's like, you got it, but that comes with self-awareness. And if you don't know that about yourself, it's just going to come out as you nagging and belittling your partner, because that's your way of trying to encourage them to become like you. But it's not the vibe. It's not what we want to enter relationships to do. Green flags. Do we have any? Raven. Green flag to Raven for shooting down Cole. Bartise. For shooting down Bartise and like making that absolutely clear. Great job. That's a green flag. Do we have another
green flag to SK for just being an absolute king? He's a king.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Amen. Yes.
Amen.
If you liked this episode, leave us a rating and review. If you haven't yet, follow us on the gram at Dish the Script Pod, as well as TikTok at Dish the Script Pod. If you're not watching our YouTube channel yet, you're not getting to see me do this right now. So you should go watch Sparkle. You should go watch our YouTube channel. And if you want us to answer any questions, head to our website, dishthescriptpod.com. And if you want a free 30-minute session, apply at dishthescriptpod.com/podcast. That's it. We'll see you on the next one.
Sayonara.
Sayonara.